The cantina on Nexus Prime was filled with smoke and the sound of different alien voices talking over each other. In the darkest corner sat Commander Zethkar, his blue skin covered with old battle scars. His forearms moved slowly as he lifted his drink to his mouth. The liquid burned his throat, but it helped him forget the nightmares that came every night. 3 years had passed since the war with humans ended. 3 years since Zethkar last slept through a full night without waking. Up screaming, the other Valonians called him a hero. They said he was brave for fighting the strange new species from the third planet of a yellow star. They did not know the truth. They did not know what humans were really like. Zethkar looked at his reflection in his drink. His once bright yellow eyes were now dull and tired. The left side of his face had a long scar that ran from his forehead to his jaw. A human weapon had done that to him, but the scars on his body were nothing compared to the scars in his mind. The cantina door opened with a soft hiss. A young Valonian cadet walked in, looking around nervously. His uniform was clean and new. His eyes were bright with excitement. Zethkar knew that look. He had once looked the same way, back when he thought war was about honor and glory. The young cadet spotted Zethkar and walked over quickly. His boots clicked on the metal floor as he approached the table. "Commander." "Zethkar?" the cadet asked in a voice that shook slightly. "I am Cadet Velther. I just finished training academy. Everyone says you are the greatest warrior in the Empire." Zethkar did not look up from his drink. "Go away, boy." But Velther did not leave. Instead, he sat down across from the commander. "Sir, I want to hear about the war. I want to know what it was like to fight humans. The instructors at the academy say humans are weak. They say we only made peace because our leaders got soft." Now Zethkar looked up. His tired eyes met the young cadet's eager ones. "Your instructors are fools." "But sir, humans are so small. They have no claws, no natural armor, no extra arms. How could they be dangerous?" Zethkar laughed, but there was no joy in the sound. It was cold and bitter. "Small? Yes, they are small. Weak? That is what we thought too." He took another drink. "That mistake cost us half our fleet." Velther leaned forward, his eyes wide. "Tell me what happened, sir. I need to know." "No, you do not need to know. You want to know. There is a difference." Zethkar set down his glass hard enough to make the table shake. "Some knowledge changes you. Some things, once you learn them, you cannot unlearn. The truth about humans is one of those things. I can handle it, sir. I am not a child." Zethkar studied the young cadet's face. He saw himself 3 years ago, full of pride and confidence. He remembered thinking he was ready for anything. He had been wrong. "You think you know what war is," Zethkar said slowly. "You think it is about who has better weapons or more ships. You think it is about strategy and tactics from your books. You are wrong. War is about will. It is about who wants to win more. And humans ... double quotes." He paused, his voice getting quiet. "Humans want to win more than any species should." "What do you mean, sir?" Zethkar was quiet for a long moment. Around them, other aliens laughed and talked, enjoying their evening. They did not know. They had not seen what he had seen. "The first time I saw a human up close," Zethkar began, "I thought it was a joke. It was during the battle for Kepler Station. We had captured their supply ship. Most of the crew was dead or wounded. But one human, a female named Karen, was still alive." Velther listened carefully, not wanting to miss a word. She was small, even for a human, maybe 5.5 feet tall. She had yellow hair and blue eyes. She looked like a child. She was bleeding from a wound in her shoulder. Our soldiers thought she would surrender. Instead, she smiled at us. She smiled? Yes, she smiled. Then she said something in her language. Later, I learned what it meant. She said, "You picked the wrong species to mess with." Then she activated something in her hand. Zethkar's voice got very quiet. The explosion killed 12 of my soldiers. It nearly killed me. That small, wounded human had turned herself into a bomb. She knew she was going to die, so she decided to take as many of us with her as possible. Velthur's mouth opened in shock. She killed herself? That was when I first understood. Zethkar continued, "Humans do not fight to win. They fight to make sure their enemy loses, even if it costs them everything, even if it costs them their lives." The commander picked up his drink again, but his hands were shaking now. That human, Karen, she was not a soldier. She was what they call a supply officer. She moved food and equipment. She was not trained for combat. But when the time came, she was ready to die to hurt us. Maybe she was just crazy, Velthur suggested. Zethkar shook his head. That is what I thought at first. That is what we all thought. But as the war went on, we learned the truth. They were not crazy. That is just how humans are. Every single one of them. The young cadet was quiet now, starting to understand that this story was not going to be what he expected. "You want to hear war stories?" Zethkar asked. "You want to know what it was like to fight humans? Then listen carefully. Boy, because once I tell you these things, you will never sleep peacefully again. You will understand why our mighty empire, with all our ships and weapons and soldiers, chose to make peace with a species that barely has faster than light travel." Velthur nodded slowly. His excitement was gone now, replaced by something that looked like fear. "Good," Zethkar said. "Fear is the beginning of wisdom. Now let me tell you about the real war. Let me tell you what humans are capable of when they decide that dying is better than losing." Zethkar took a long drink and stared at the wall behind Velthur. His eyes looked far away, as if he was seeing something that was not there. The young cadet waited quietly, afraid to speak and break whatever spell was holding the commander. "The Battle of Kepler 442b, Zethkar said finally. "That is where I learned that everything we knew about war was wrong. That is where I learned that humans do not think like other species." Velthur leaned forward slightly. "What happened there, sir?" "We had them surrounded, completely surrounded. 3,000 human soldiers on a planet with no way to escape. Our ships controlled the space around the planet. Our forces outnumbered them 10 to 1. Their weapons were older than ours. Their armor was weaker. By every rule of war, they should have surrendered." Zethkar paused and rubbed the scar on his face. "I was there as part of the landing force. General Kravix was in command. He sent them a message offering surrender terms. The humans could live if they gave up. It was generous. More generous than we would give most enemies. Did they accept? Their leader was a human named Colonel Jake Murphy. He was maybe 40, years old, with gray hair and brown eyes. He looked tired, like he had not slept in days. When our message came through, he looked at it for a long time. Then he started laughing." Velthur frowned. "Laughing? Not happy laughing. Crazy laughing. The kind of laugh that makes your skin crawl. Then he sent us a message back. Just 3 words in their language. Come and take." Zethkar shook his head slowly. "We thought he was bluffing. We thought he was trying to scare us. So we began. Our attack. Our plan was simple. Surround their base, use our superior weapons to break their defenses, then move in for the final assault." A commander's voice got quieter. "The first thing that went wrong was when we started finding their wounded." "What do you mean?" "In normal war, when soldiers get hurt, their friends try to keep them safe. They hide them or evacuate them. Humans did something different. They put their wounded soldiers in front of their defensive positions. They used their own hurt people as shields. Velther's mouth opened in shock. That is against the laws of war. Humans do not care about laws when they are fighting for their lives. We could not shoot at the defensive positions without hitting wounded humans. Our weapons would kill them, so we hesitated. That hesitation cost us. Zethkar finished his drink and signaled for another. While we were trying to figure out what to do about the wounded, other humans were moving. Two of them, a female named Lisa Carter and a male named Ben Rodriguez, had crawled into the ventilation systems of our temporary command posts. How did they get in? They had been crawling through those metal tunnels for 3 days. 3 days without food. 3 days without water. They moved only at night, 1 inch at a time, so our sensors would not detect them. They covered themselves in waste and dirt so they would not smell like humans. They had turned themselves into animals just to get close to us. Velther was quiet now, his face pale. On the 3rd night of the battle, explosions started going off in our command centers. Lisa Carter and Ben Rodriguez had planted bombs in 12 different locations. They knew exactly where to put them to cause the most damage. They had studied our equipment while they crawled through those tunnels. Zethkar's new drink arrived. He took a sip before continuing. When we finally caught them, they were both badly hurt. Ben Rodriguez had a broken leg from a fall in the ventilation shaft. Lisa Carter was bleeding from cuts all over her body. But when our soldiers surrounded them, both humans smiled. Smiled? Yes, they smiled like they had just won a great victory. Ben Rodriguez said something to Lisa Carter in their language. She nodded and said something back. Then they both pressed buttons they were holding in their hands. Zethkar was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. They had surgery scars on their chests, old scars. They had put bombs inside their own bodies before the mission started. They had been walking around for days with explosives in their rib cages, just waiting for the right moment to die. Velther made a sound like he was about to be sick. The explosion killed them both instantly. It also killed 8 of our soldiers and destroyed most of our command equipment. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was what they did. While the bombs were going off. What do you mean? They sang. As they died, as their bodies were being torn apart by their own bombs, they sang a song. A human battle song. Our translators told us later what the words meant. It was about going home, about seeing their families again. They sang about love and hope while they committed suicide. Zethkar rubbed his temples like his head was hurting. That was when our soldiers started to break. You have to understand, we had fought many species before. We knew about desperate tactics. We knew about fighting to the death. But we had never seen anything like this. We had never fought an enemy that could find joy in their own destruction. But surely that was unusual, Velther said weakly. Surely. Most humans are not like that. Zethkar looked at him with sad eyes. That is what we told ourselves, too. That is what kept us sane for the rest of the battle. We told ourselves that Lisa Carter and Ben Rodriguez were special cases. We told ourselves that normal humans would not do such things. The commander leaned forward. We were wrong. By the end of the Battle of Kepler 442b, we learned that every human soldier was ready to do exactly what those two had done. Every single one of them had the same look in their eyes. The same terrible willingness to die if it meant hurting us. Velther was shaking now. How did the battle end? We won, technically. We took the planet. But it cost us so much that it felt like losing. Half our soldiers needed therapy afterwards. Many of them never recovered. As for the humans, Zethkar paused. Jake Murphy and his soldiers kept fighting until the very end. When we finally broke through their last defenses, we found them all dead. Every single human had fought until they could not fight anymore. They were all killed? No, that was the strangest part. Most of them had died from their wounds, but they could have surrendered earlier and lived. Instead, they chose to keep fighting until their bodies gave out. In their final moments, they were still trying to reload their weapons. Zethkar stood up slowly. That night, I realized something that changed me forever. Humans do not fight wars the way other species do. For them, war is not about winning or losing. It is about making sure their enemy pays the highest possible price for every inch of ground, every victory, every breath they take. The commander looked down at Velther. And that was just the beginning. That was just the first time we fought. Humans, would you like to hear what happened when they really got angry? Velther did not answer. He just stared at Zethkar with wide eyes. The young cadet's hands were shaking as he reached for his own drink. He took a small sip and waited for the commander to continue. Zethkar sat back down heavily. The siege of New Gibraltar. That was 6 months after Kepler 442b. We thought we had learned how to fight humans. We thought we understood their tactics. We were wrong again. The commander's voice was flat and emotionless now, like he was reading from a report. New Gibraltar was a human colony world. 50,000 civilians lived there, mostly families with children. The military garrison was small, maybe 500 soldiers. We had 20,000 troops and full orbital support. That should have been easy, Velther said quietly. It should have been, but humans do not make anything easy. Their chief engineer was a woman named Captain Amy Foster. She had brown hair and green eyes and looked like she could be someone's grandmother. She wore thick glasses and spoke in a soft voice. She looked harmless. Zethkar paused to take another drink. Captain Foster had been on New Gibraltar for 3 years before the war started. In that time, she had studied everything about the colony. Every building, every system, every piece of equipment. She knew that world better than anyone. What did she do? When our ships arrived in orbit, we expected the humans to hide in bunkers or try to evacuate. Instead, Captain Foster and her team went to work. They started taking apart ordinary things and putting them back together in new ways. Veltha frowned. What kind of things? Cleaning supplies. The humans had chemicals for washing clothes and scrubbing floors. Captain Foster mixed these chemicals together and created poison gas. Not just a little bit. She made enough to cover half the planet. The young cadet's face went pale. She used cleaning supplies to make weapons? That was just the beginning. They took children's toys, little electronic games and remote-controlled cars, and turned them into spy drones. They used kitchen appliances to build communication jammers. They took farming equipment and made it into artillery. Zethkar shook his head in amazement. In 3 days, Captain Foster and her team had turned an entire civilian colony into a fortress. Every building was a weapon. Every street was a trap. Every innocent-looking object was hiding something dangerous. But surely civilians would not fight, Velther said. Surely they would try to stay safe. Human civilians do not stay safe when their world is being invaded. The parents fought as hard as the soldiers. Harder, maybe. They knew their children were watching. The commander's voice got very quiet. There was a human male named Peter Hayes. He was a medic, someone who heals people instead of hurting them. He wore a white coat with a red cross on it. The red cross means he was not supposed to be a target. It means he was protected by the laws of war. What happened to him? When the fighting started, Peter Hayes did exactly what a medic should do. He helped wounded soldiers from both sides, human and Valonian. He treated our injured troops with the same care he gave his own people. He was gentle and kind. He spoke softly, and his hands were always steady. Zethkar's grip tightened on his glass. Our wounded soldiers began to trust him. He would sit with them while they recovered. He would ask about their families, their home worlds, their hopes for after the war. He seemed to genuinely care about them. That sounds nice, Belther said, confused. It was a lie. All of it? While Peter Hayes was being kind and gentle, while he was earning our trust, he was also doing something else. Every time he treated one of our wounded, he was putting something inside them. What kind of something? Tracking devices. Listening. Equipment. Tiny cameras. Things so small, our medical scanners could not detect them. He would hide them in bandages or inject them with medicine. Our soldiers never knew. Velther made a disgusted sound. He used medical treatment as a weapon? Yes. For 2 months, our wounded soldiers went back to their units carrying human spy equipment. The humans could hear our battle plans. They could track our movements. They knew everything we were going to do before we did it. Zethkar finished his drink in one gulp. But that was still not the worst part. The worst part was what happened. With the prisoners? During the siege, we captured some human soldiers. Standard procedure was to question them for information, then keep them locked up until the war ended. These prisoners were different. They wanted to be captured. Velther looked confused. Why would they want that? Because being captured was part of their plan. The humans we caught were not regular soldiers. They were specialists, scientists, linguists, psychologists, people who study how minds work. The commander leaned forward. One of them was named Tony Garcia. He was maybe 30 years old, with black hair and dark eyes. He had been a university professor before the war. He studied alien cultures and languages. What did he do? Tony Garcia spent 4 months in our prison camp. During that time, our guards questioned him every day. They tried to make him tell them human military secrets. He refused to talk, so they used pain to try to force him. Zithkar's voice got very quiet. What we did not know was that Tony Garcia was studying us the whole time. Every question we asked taught him something about how we think. Every punishment we gave him showed him something about our psychology. He was learning our language, our customs, our fears, while he was being tortured. Yes, he endured months of pain just to gather information, and he was not alone. There was a woman named Helen Wright. She was a communications expert. She let us capture her so she could study our radio equipment and computer systems. Velther was shaking his head in disbelief. They volunteered to be tortured? They did more than volunteer. They requested it. Helen Wright actually made herself easy to capture. She left false clues that led our patrols right to her hiding place. She wanted to be caught. Zethkar stood up and walked to the window of the cantina. Outside, ships from a dozen different species were docked at the station. Helen Wright spent 6 months in captivity, 6 months of questioning and pain. But during that time, she memorized everything about our communication systems. She learned how our computers worked. She found weaknesses in our security. What happened when you found out? We never did find out, not until it was too late. One day, all of our communications went down at the same time. Our computers started showing false information. Our security systems began opening doors for human soldiers. The commander turned back to face Velther. Tony Garcia and Helen Wright had escaped 3 days earlier, but they had not just escaped. They had sabotaged everything. All the information they had gathered while we tortured them, they used it to destroy us from the inside. How did they escape? They walked out the front door. Helen Wright had reprogrammed our security systems to not recognize them as prisoners. Tony Garcia had learned enough of our language to forge release orders. They had turned our own systems against us. Velther was quiet for a long moment. What happened to New Gibraltar? We eventually took the planet, but it cost us 8.5 months our invasion force. Captain Amy Foster died in the final battle, but not before she activated one last trap. She had rigged the colony's power plant to explode if the humans lost. Did it explode? No. At the last second, she changed her mind. Do you know why? Velther shook his head. Because there were Valonian prisoners in the blast zone. Wounded. Soldiers that Peter Hayes had been treating. Even in her final moments, even when she was about to die, Captain Foster could not bring herself to kill helpless enemies. Zethkar sat back down. That is what made humans so terrifying. They could be completely ruthless and completely merciful at the same time. They could torture you and heal you. They could destroy you and save you. You never knew which human you were going to meet until it was too late. The commander looked at Velther with tired eyes. And that was just one planet. Just one small colony. When the humans really got angry, when they decided to fight back instead of just defend themselves, that is when the real nightmare began. There is more? Velther asked in a whisper. Oh yes, Zethkar said. There is much more. Would you like to hear about the Battle of Luna? Would you like to know what humans are capable of when they are protecting their home world? Velther could barely speak. His voice came out as a croak. The Battle of Luna? Zethkar nodded slowly. Luna is what humans call their moon. It orbits around their home world, Earth. By the time we reached their solar system, we had been fighting humans for 2 years. We thought we knew what to expect. We thought nothing could surprise us anymore. The commander ordered another drink, his fourth of the evening. Admiral Kate Sullivan commanded the human fleet that day. She was maybe 50 years old, with silver hair and blue eyes. She had been fighting us since the war began. Her ship was called the USS Defiance. Was it a big ship? Not really. The Defiance was old and damaged. It had holes in the hull from previous battles. The engines were barely working. Most of the weapons were broken. It should not have been in space at all. It should have been in a repair yard. Zethkar took a sip of his drink. Admiral Sullivan had 12 ships under her command. All of them were damaged. All of them were running on emergency power. Our fleet had 60 ships, all brand new, all fully armed. The battle should have lasted 5 minutes, but it did not. No, it lasted 18 hours. 18 hours of the most terrifying combat I have ever seen. And by the end, we were the ones running away. Velther leaned forward, despite his fear. What happened? The first thing Admiral Sullivan did was send us a message. She spoke directly to our fleet commander, Admiral Thrax. She said her people wanted to talk before the fighting started. Admiral Thrax agreed to listen. Zethkar's voice got quiet. What Admiral Sullivan said next still gives me nightmares. She said, "You have attacked our colonies. You have killed our people. You have come to our home system thinking you can take our world. But you do not understand what you are facing. We are not just defending ships or planets or territory. We are defending our children. We are defending our future. And there is nothing in this universe that we will not do to protect them." That sounds like a normal speech, Velther said. The words were normal, but the way she said them was not. Admiral Sullivan was crying while she spoke. Tears were running down her face, but she was also smiling. It was the most frightening thing I have ever seen. A human crying and smiling at the same time while promising to destroy us. Zethkar shook his head. Then she said something that made our translator computers malfunction. She said, "You want to know what humans are capable of? Watch and learn." Then she cut the communication, and the battle began. What did the humans do? They started singing. All of them, on all 12 ships. They sang together over their communication channels. Our sensors picked up the sound and played it through our ships. It was a song about their home world. About blue skies and green grass and children playing in parks. The commander's hands were shaking now. While they sang, they attacked us. But not the way we expected. Instead of trying to win the battle, they were trying to hurt us as much as possible before they died. What do you mean? Admiral Sullivan ordered her ships to ram into ours. Not to disable them or capture them. To destroy them completely, even if it meant destroying themselves too. The first human ship to do this was commanded by Captain Chris Anderson. Zeth Carr closed his eyes. Captain Anderson's ship was called the Boston. It had been hit by our weapons and was on fire. Half his crew was dead. His engines were failing. Any sane commander would have surrendered or tried to escape, but he did not? No. Instead, Captain Anderson turned his ship toward our biggest warship and pushed his engines past their safety limits. As he flew toward us, he sent a message to his crew and to the other human ships. The commander opened his eyes and looked directly at Velther. He said, "Tell my daughter I kept my promise to come home for her birthday. I am just bringing some uninvited guests with me." Velther made a sound like he was choking. The Boston hit our ship at full speed. The explosion destroyed both vessels instantly. 4,000 Valonian soldiers died in that crash. But Captain Anderson was laughing when it happened. We could hear him laughing over the radio until the very last second. Zeth Carr finished his drink in one gulp. That was just the beginning. One by one, the human ships started doing the same thing. They would fight until they were almost destroyed, then ram themselves into our vessels. Each time, the human crews would say goodbye to their families over the radio. All of them? Every single one? There was a pilot named Maria Santos. Her fighter was hit by our missiles, and her engines were dead. She was floating in space, bleeding from her wounds. But she still had one weapon left, a small explosive charge. Instead of using it to try to escape, she flew her dead ship into our command center and detonated the charge. The commander's voice broke. As she died, Maria Santos was talking to someone named Carlos, probably her husband or boyfriend. She told him she loved him. She told him to take care of their dog. She was talking about normal, everyday things while she committed suicide to hurt us. "This is insane," Velther whispered. There was another pilot named Rick Thompson. His ship was shot down, and he was trapped in the wreckage. Our rescue teams found him 3 hours later. He was dying, bleeding from internal wounds. But when our medics tried to help him, he started joking with them. Joking? Yes. He told them funny stories about his friends. He asked them about their families. He made them laugh, even though he was dying. Even though we were enemies. Rick Thompson spent his last hour of life trying to make our soldiers feel better. Zeth Carr rubbed his face with his hands. But the worst part was Admiral Sullivan herself. When her ship was the last one left, when all her other ships had been destroyed, she did something that broke our spirits completely. What did she do? She opened a communication channel to our entire fleet, not just to our commanders, but to every ship, every soldier. Then she started talking to us like we were friends, like we were people she cared about. Velther frowned. "I do not understand." Admiral Sullivan told us about Earth. She described the cities and the oceans and the forests. She talked about human children playing in parks. She told us about art and music and poetry. She made Earth sound like the most beautiful place in the universe. Why would she do that? Because she wanted us to understand what we were trying to destroy. She wanted us to know that we were not just fighting soldiers or ships. We were trying to kill an entire civilization. A civilization full of beauty and love and hope. Zeth Carr's voice was barely a whisper now. Then Admiral Sullivan said something that ended the battle. She said, "I know some of you have children at home. I know some of you are parents, just like me. I want you to think about your children while you watch what I am about to do. I want you to imagine how far you would go to protect them." What happened next? Admiral Sullivan turned her ship toward Earth. Not toward our fleet, toward her own planet. She activated her engines and started flying straight down toward the surface. Velther's eyes went wide. She was going to crash into her own world? Yes, she was going to turn her ship into a meteor. The impact would have killed millions of humans. It would have destroyed entire cities. But it also would have created so much debris and radiation that our ships could not land safely. She was willing to destroy part of her own planet to keep us from taking it. The commander was crying now, tears running down his blue face. As she flew toward Earth, Admiral Sullivan kept talking to us. She said goodbye to her crew. She told them they had fought with honor. She said she was proud to die with them. Did she crash? No. At the last moment, Admiral Thrax ordered our fleet to retreat. He could not watch a mother destroy her own world to protect it. The sight of Admiral Sullivan willing to kill her own people, rather than let us conquer them, broke something inside him. Zethkar wiped his eyes. We left the human solar system that day. We never went back. The war ended 6 months later with a peace treaty. But it was not really peace. It was surrender. We surrendered to a species that scared us too much to keep fighting. Because they were willing to die? No, Zethkar said quietly. Because they were willing to live. Even in their darkest moments, even when they were dying, humans still found ways to love each other, still found ways to hope, still found ways to make jokes and sing songs and care about their enemies. The commander stood up slowly. That is what made them unbeatable. Not their weapons or their tactics or their willingness to sacrifice themselves. Their ability to remain human, even in the middle of hell. Velther sat in silence, trying to process everything he had heard. "There is one more thing you need to know," Zethkar said as he prepared to leave. "One more truth about humans that will help you understand why we can never fight them again." "What is that?" "The humans we fought in that war, the ones who did. All these terrible and wonderful things, they were not their best warriors. They were just ordinary people defending their homes. Somewhere out there, in human space, are their real soldiers. They're professionals. They're elite forces." Zethkar walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back. "And those humans have had 3 years to study everything we did wrong. 3 years to prepare for the next war. 3 years to become even more dangerous than they already were." The commander left the cantina, leaving Velther alone with his thoughts and his fears. Velther sat alone in the cantina for a long time after Zethkar left. The young cadet stared at his drink, but he could not bring himself to take another sip. His hands were shaking too much to hold the glass steady. Everything he thought he knew about war, about courage, about what it meant to be a soldier, had been turned upside down. The cantina was getting quieter now. Most of the other aliens had gone back to their ships or their rooms. Velther was about to leave when he heard familiar footsteps behind him. Zethkar had returned. The commander sat down across from Velther again, but this time he looked different. His eyes were clearer, as if telling his stories had helped him in some way. He had a small data pad in his hands. "I came back because—" "There is more you need to know," Zethkar said quietly. "The war ended 3 years ago, but the story did not end with the peace treaty. In many ways, that is when the real story began." Velther looked up. "What do you mean? Do you know why? Our empire agreed to peace with humans? Do you know what terms we accepted?" The young cadet shook his head. "We agreed to stay out of human space forever. We agreed to pay them money for the damage we caused. We agreed to share our medical technology to help heal the humans we wounded. And most importantly, we agreed to never attack any species that humans call their friends. That does not sound like terms we'd accept, Velther said slowly. You are right. Normally, we would never agree to such things, but we had no choice. You see, the peace talks did not happen because we wanted them. They happened because our own soldiers refused to keep fighting. Zethkar activated his datapad and showed Velther some files. After the Battle of Luna, something strange started happening in our fleet. Our soldiers began having nightmares. They could not sleep. They could not eat. Many of them stopped talking altogether. What was wrong with them? They were broken. Not their bodies, but their minds. Fighting humans had changed them in ways our doctors could not fix. Soldiers who had been brave and strong before the war became afraid of their own shadows. They would wake up screaming about human children and human songs and human laughter. The commander scrolled through more files. Within 6 months of the Battle of Luna, 40% of our military was unfit for duty. Not because they were injured, but because they could not handle the memories of fighting humans. Our own high command realized that if the war continued, we would not have an army left. But surely peace was the right choice, Velther said. Peace was the only choice. But the humans made sure we understood what would happen if we ever broke that peace. Zethkar showed Velther a video file. This message was sent to every ship in our fleet on the day the treaty was signed. It came from someone you might recognize. Velther watched as the video began to play. On the screen was Admiral Kate Sullivan, the human commander from the Battle of Luna. But she looked different now. Her hair was longer, and her face had more lines. She was wearing a civilian outfit instead of a military uniform. Greetings to the Valonian Empire, Admiral Sullivan said in perfect Valonian language. I am speaking to you 3 months after our war ended. I wanted to tell you what has happened to humanity since we made peace. Velther watched in fascination as Admiral Sullivan continued speaking. Many of you probably think that humans are still recovering from the war. You probably think we are rebuilding our damaged ships and healing our wounded soldiers. You are partially correct. We are doing those things. But we are also doing much more. The video showed images of human space stations and factories. Everything looked new and advanced. In the 3 months since the war ended, we have built 50 new shipyards. We have trained 2 million new soldiers. We have developed weapons that make the ones you fought look like children's toys. And we have done all of this while also taking care of our wounded and rebuilding our damaged worlds. Zethkar paused the video. Notice what she is not saying. She is not threatening us or bragging about their strength. She is just telling us facts, letting us draw our own conclusions. The video continued. You might wonder why we are building up our military after winning the war. The answer is simple. We learned something important during our conflict with you. We learned that there are dangerous species in this galaxy. Species that will attack peaceful worlds without warning. Species that will try to conquer and enslave. Others. Admiral Sullivan's expression became very serious. We have decided that this cannot be allowed to continue. From now on, humanity will protect any species that asks for our help. We will defend any world that is attacked by bullies and conquerors. We will make sure that what happened to our colonies never happens to anyone else. Velther felt a chill run down his spine. But that is not all, Admiral Sullivan continued. We have also made contact with other species who have been attacked by the Valonian Empire in the past. The Kthari, the Voss, the Meridians. All of them have joined what we call the Galactic Defense Alliance. All of them are now under human protection. The video showed images of alien ships with human designs, weapons and armor that looked familiar, but improved. We have shared our technology with our new allies. We have taught them our tactics. We have shown them how to fight the way humans fight, how to never give up, how to make their enemies pay for every victory. Zethkar stopped the video and looked at Velthur. Do you understand what this means? It means we are surrounded. Velthur whispered. It means we are trapped. Every species around us is now armed with human weapons and trained in human tactics. If we ever try to expand our territory again, we will not be fighting one species. We will be fighting a dozen. Species who all think like humans. The commander restarted the video for the final part of Admiral Sullivan's message. I want to be clear about something, she said. Humanity does not want another war. We do not enjoy fighting. Every human who died in our conflict was someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. We mourn them all. Her voice became softer, sadder. But we also want the galaxy to understand that we will never allow what happened to us to happen to others. We will never stand by while innocent people are attacked and killed. If you come in peace, you will find no species more welcoming than humanity. But if you come with violence, you will find no enemy more terrible than us. Admiral Sullivan looked directly at the camera. The choice is yours, Valonian Empire. You can live in peace with your neighbors, or you can face the consequences of choosing war. But know this, if you choose war, you will not just be fighting humanity. You will be fighting everyone humanity has sworn to protect. And that number grows larger every day. The video ended. Zethkar put away his datapad and looked at Velthur. That message was sent 3 years ago, the commander said. Since then, 15 more species have joined the Human Alliance. Our intelligence reports say that humans are building a fleet larger than anything the galaxy has ever seen. Not to attack anyone, but to make sure no one can attack their friends. What about our military? Velthur asked. Are we building up too? Zethkar laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Our military is falling apart. Half our soldiers refuse to fight humans. The other half are too scared to leave our home system. Our shipyards are producing cargo vessels and passenger ships instead of warships. Our leaders know that we could never win another war against humanity. The commander leaned forward. But the most frightening thing is not their military power. It is how they have changed the galaxy itself. Before the war, species fought each other constantly. Now they work together. They share technology and resources. They help each other solve problems. That sounds good, Velthur said uncertainly. It is good. That is what makes it so terrifying. Humans have created something that no other species ever could. A galaxy where everyone wins except the bullies and conquerors. They have made war obsolete by making cooperation more profitable than conflict. Zethkar stood up slowly. So now you know the truth, young cadet. The war with humanity was not just a military defeat. It was the end of the Valonian Empire as we knew it. We are no longer a conquering power. We are just another species, trying to find our place in a galaxy that humans have made peaceful. Velthur was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, What should I do? What should our people do? Learn, adapt, change. Zethkar moved toward the door. Study human culture. Learn their languages. Understand their values. Because whether we like it or not, the future of this galaxy will be shaped by human ideas about right and wrong, about cooperation and conflict, about what it means to be civilized. The commander paused at the door. And pray that we never give them a reason to treat us as enemies again. Because the humans we fought 3 years ago were just defending themselves. The humans they are training now are preparing to defend everyone. There is a difference between those two things. A very important difference. Zethkar left the cantina for the second time that night. Velthur sat alone, staring out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans were building ships and training soldiers and making alliances. They were creating a future that no one could have imagined before the war. The young cadet finally understood why Zethkar had nightmares. It was not just because of what humans had done during the war. It was because of what they were doing after it.